Hey guys, before we go any further, I want to tell you about one of my favorite marketing podcasts. I think you're really going to enjoy. Believe it or not, it's a fun and funny podcast about email marketing. That's what it's called, the Email Marketing Show. They recently did an amazing episode called 6 Lies Your Email Marketing Platform is Telling You, which I love because these guys are so genuine and real in their opinions about what is working and what does not in the email marketing world today. You should definitely check it out. You can go find them in your podcast player of choice as the Email Marketing Show, or go to their website at emailmarketingheroes.com. Entrepreneurs Enigma is a podcast for the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. It's got the wins and the fails that we all face being entrepreneurs, and how we learn from adversity. Every week I talk to a different entrepreneur with a story to tell. I'm Seth Goldstein. Come with me on the journey. This is Entrepreneurs Enigma. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Entrepreneurs Enigma podcast. Today I am with Buzz of ActiveWords. Now, ActiveWords we'll get into. I love it. I'm addicted to it. I met Buzz through a networking channel that we both are still wondering what their end goal is of it, Lunch Club. But, hey, I met Buzz, and Buzz is an awesome guy. Long story of how he came to found ActiveWords. But so, hello, Buzz. How you doing?
Hey, Seth, I'm great. How are things on the East Coast?
Actually, they're quite nice today. They're almost like Seattle, like they're 55 and sunny. So,
well, we don't. Sun is not a word that you immediately associate with Seattle. But anyway,
it's a little overcast. But today's gorgeous here. It's like 50. It might be 60 even. So anyhow, so Buzz, you are a recovering lawyer.
Yes, sir.
You are a Duke grad and diehard fan.
Yes, sir.
But way back when, you grew up in Minnesota.
Yeah. I grew up in a little town called International Falls, Minnesota. 305 miles. Pardon me?
That's a good name for a town.
Well, it's because there was a falls, and it's on the international border with Canada.
Oh,
and
that makes sense.
The falls was 60, 70-foot drop, and then they dammed it, built a paper company, and it is historically the coldest place in the United States.
That sounds like fun.
Well, I walked to school one morning when I was 53 below zero, and I went back and I actually, as an adult, rewalked the 2.5 blocks. And I remember thinking how excited all the kids were to get to school every morning.
I wonder why.
As it was warm.
53 below zero, right. And that's Fahrenheit.
Yes, sir. No, this was way, way, way before wind chill. And the only time the school was ever closed was either for deer hunting or for the hockey tournament.
Oh, because you're very, you're up by the Canadian border, so of course hockey.
Yeah. In fact, my parents' house was on the riverbank, and I could look into Canada. In fact, it was so remote that I grew up thinking that half the world was Canadian.
And that would mean that half the world is nice.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
And so clearly you were wrong.
Yeah. And this was when Tim Horton was still, I think this was before Tim Horton was a goalie for the Leafs. But anyway.
And well before he was a coffee company.
Way, way, way before the coffee company. There's two ways of looking at it. In Minnesota, you either have two seasons, which are winter and the 4th of July, or winter and road construction. But it would a very good place to be from. And in fact, I was just in Santa Fe, and I ended up getting a ride with a guy in his Uber, or just from Albuquerque to Santa Fe Airport, with a guy from Minneapolis. And we talked about how in Minnesota, people think of Minneapolis as really tropical.
Sorry. That's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway.
So you grew up on the Canadian border.
Yes, sir.
In Minnesota, where it's 54 degrees below zero. And then somehow you managed to get out and you went to Duke. Is that where you started? Did you start at Duke?
I started as an excellent small liberal arts college in Iowa, a place called Coe College.
Still warmer. Much warmer than where you grew up.
600 miles south, and you can spot a trend. And then when I got into Duke Law School, I looked at the weather in Durham, North Carolina, and I saw it still warmer. And then I ultimately got a terrific job in Winter Park, Florida, still warmer.
Yeah. And have you noticed that you had dry, cold winters, right. And then you slowly go east and it gets warmer, but stickier.
Right. In Winter Park, there were all kinds of flowering trees. In International Falls, a flowering tree was a pine cone.
I love it.
Yeah. So it was, I got to Florida just as the Disney boom was starting.
Yeah, and Winter Park is around Disney, isn't it?
Well, it's the fancy suburb of Orlando. And so Disney was about to open. And in fact, I was telling a friend the other day that as a young lawyer, one of my jobs was to take clients' families to Disney World.
Oh, that sounds like a good job.
Well, I got to be, the highest paid tour guide. So I got to know the Disney like the back of my hand. And it was totally fascinating because I think when I started practicing law in Central Florida, there were 600,000 people in a 5-county area. When I left 34 years later to move to Seattle because of ActiveWords, there were 3 million people in the 5-county area.
Wow.
So and don't hold me to those numbers, but
no, approximate, yeah.
Yeah, the growth was explosive. There were tons of opportunities for a young lawyer, and it was living in the endless summer. It's very, very interesting, and my law practice mirrored in many ways the evolution of technology in terms of productivity, in terms of what was happening. When I started practicing law, sophisticated technology was a sharp pencil for the secretary taking dictation because the recording stuff didn't work very well.
Yeah.
And the best computer in the place was an IBM MagCard typewriter.
Wow.
A self-correcting MagCard typewriter. And the self-correcting MagCard typewriter came with these cards that looked like the same size as a boarding pass for airplane.
Okay. Yeah.
So my law practice and technology became incredibly intertwined, which will ultimately lead to the ActiveWords story.
We're going to take a quick break, hear from our sponsors, and get right back to the show. Time and place is everything, especially in marketing. But today there are millions of messages per minute and not enough hours in the day. How do you catch your target audience's attention? One word, LinkedIn. LinkedIn can help you speak to the right people at the right time. LinkedIn has become #1 in B2B advertising in the U.S. With LinkedIn, you can stand out against your competitors, nurturing customer relationships and growing your brand. LinkedIn delivers you quantity and quality. Its targeting tools allow you to reach precise audiences down to their job title, company name, location, and more, which means your ads are being seen by those who matter most. Scale your marketing and grow your business with LinkedIn advertising. As a thank you to their customers for helping them grow 3 times faster than their competition, LinkedIn is offering a $100 credit on your next campaign. To get this credit, go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN.
When I was practicing law, I truly did my best to hire the smartest people I could, understand from them what it was they needed to do their jobs, sort of sketch out, the desired outcome, and then get out of the way. And certainly one of the other things I've learned as an entrepreneur is to hire slowly, fire fast. Hire slowly, fire fast, because if you go through that sort of mating ritual and you find good people, you either have to decide that you're going to trust them and empower them, or you have to, fire them. The cost of employing people is just so great these days. So let me talk about the origin story a little bit.
Yeah, please.
So the origin story is that I had met a gentleman, a very bright gentleman, who was at the time the CTO of a mid-market banking software company. And he had worked at Bell Labs with a guy named Marvin Minsky. Minsky being the father of semantics in computing. And so we were walking down Park Avenue in Winter Park, heading for lunch, and he turned to me and he said, "Why don't computers understand us?" So I said to myself, well, the best answer seems to be that voice doesn't work. And voice works much, much better today.
And they're still not perfect.
Yeah, so the net effect of that becomes, even if voice were to work perfectly, there's all kinds of contexts: a meeting, a classroom, an airplane, a Starbucks, where you wouldn't lean in and begin talking to your computer unless you were hoping for some miraculous result. So we began talking about this idea, why don't computers understand us? And my co-founder basically said, but what if you could type a letter, a word, or an acronym, or whatever, and the computer could understand that and would execute on that, quote, computing event? So hypothetically, let's imagine that I'm sitting in the middle of nowhere, and given the fact that the Sixers are in your hometown, and you could type 6 and hit the space bar twice and be reading Sixers.com.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could type NYT and you'd be reading the New York Times. Or whatever you chose to name that computing event.
Mm-hmm.
So then we began to look at what it was that people did with their computers all the time. What do you do? Well, type text. Or you go to websites.
Mm-hmm.
Or you open documents. Or you launch apps. Or you do a bunch of stuff, open files, folders, and drives. Okay. 80% of the time you're doing repetitive tasks. 80% of your income comes from 20% of your clients.
Mm-hmm.
You look at all that stuff, and then you say, well, I'm going to do these things, and I'm going to do them repetitively.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just say in a perfect world that instead of it being 80-20, what if we turned it into 70-30? So if I gave you 10% more time each day, what I'm really doing is I'm kind of doubling your truly productive time. The time to focus, the time to think, the time to respond, the times when you truly add value.
Mm-hmm.
So we began to build this app. And we shipped the first stable version, 2000, 2001 in there. And those were the days when, for me to get you the app, we literally had to burn it on a CD. This whole life, or on a floppy disk. So as the world has evolved and it's become much, much easier to distribute software via downloads, the Enigma for me, is to try to figure out how to scale a very good piece of technology. What is working, what's not working. And I've given a massive, and for those of you who are, wrestling with the same problem, unless you've got a real consumer-facing product that you could advertise on Facebook, or a beauty product, or especially tea or something like that. If you're selling a technology product that is both consumer and business-to-business facing, you've really got to think through what works, because at the end of the day, I think you're going to conclude that what works is word of mouth. I was really late to the whole YouTube conversation. And in mid-pandemic, I found myself sitting on my couch. I'd installed the YouTube app on my Apple TV.
Yeah.
And what I didn't quite grok was how Google tracks you from your searches to YouTube TV or YouTube. Yeah.
Yes.
So all of a sudden, I'm helping a young friend of mine take a sabbatical, and I'm saying helping her plan it. And I thought, God, I'd love to go to Portugal. And the next thing I know is I've got this Portugal channel on YouTube. But here, I stumbled across a young guy named Kevin Stratford. And Stratford was at Microsoft at the time, and now he's become a full-time YouTuber.
Yeah.
And he showed me in about 15 minutes how to create a survey in office.com for free.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at the whole survey idea as an entrepreneur. I was scared to death to use a survey because I didn't want to hear in the middle of this pandemic that our product sucked and that people didn't like it. I mean, it just would have added to the depression of what we as a society were going through.
Yeah.
But I bit the bullet, and I sat down and I created a 20-question survey using the Microsoft tool. And I began to send it out. And as an entrepreneur, if you're not surveying your customers, you're really driving blind. You're assuming that what you're doing is working magically and that you're a genius and whatever.
That's what you find out in the survey.
So what I found out is that I've gotten 247 responses, having sent out about 500 requests.
It's not a bad return.
One of my questions was, why haven't you ever told your friends about our app? Why haven't you shared ActiveWords? Why not viral? Why not word of mouth? And the answer over and over has been, you haven't given us anything to share. So lesson 1, do the survey. Lesson 2, probably do a better job than me on the questions. Yeah. But lesson 3 is when the customer says, you haven't given us anything to share, and you think, oh my God, I've got a website. We send you nurture emails. So I stepped back and I thought, how do I meet that need? And since the day I started practicing law, I've had a philosophy that if you share relevant materials with your customers or your network, it's things that that relate to who they are, what they do, how they do it, you will then bubble up to what's called top of mind.
Exactly. And
top of mind then means that they're going to tell their friends about you. Back to the word of mouth idea, because you are a trusted source.
Absolutely.
And your customer knows that you probably have looked at something. Absolutely. If you're having a beer or you're having a cup of coffee with somebody and they say, I've been wrestling with X, what do you use?
Exactly. So recommendations. We're going to take a quick break, hear from our sponsors, and get right back to the show.
This goes back to something I learned in the law business, and I used to call it the 3 legal pad theory of a case.
Okay.
And how that worked was when you sat down with somebody and they said, I want to sue somebody or I want to do something, you really would be well advised to sort of clearing the deck, getting a clean piece of paper, and begin to take notes about what it was that they wanted. What it was. So I would take, 10 pages of notes. We'd grab a coffee. We'd come back and I'd say, okay, now Seth, we've been through Gone with the Wind. Let's kind of hit on the Reader's Digest version of what's going on here. So I can really understand the valuable points. And then I would grab a second legal pad, I'd do that, and then I grab a third legal pad, clean legal pad. And I did that intentionally to make you understand that there were different things happening in this process.
Each step, yeah.
Each step. And then in the third legal pad, I would say, what does a great outcome look like?
Yeah.
Because again, as an entrepreneur, you're trying to understand what's a great outcome. Along the way, I became good friends with David Allen, the author of Getting Things Done. And David always talks about the desired outcomes and what's the next action. And if I say, I want to get ActiveWords on every Windows computer that ships, what's the next action? And back to the 3 legal pad idea, I would take my notes and then I would transcribe them, I'd dictate them or type them or, as technology evolved. And I would send them back, to you. And I would say, this is what I heard you say.
Yes, it makes you sure that you're actively listening, you actively care.
And more often than I would like to admit, people said, that's not what I said. And I began to develop a theory that as human beings, there seems to be a difference between what it is we say, what it is we think we say, and what it is we hear and what it is we think we hear. So working towards clarity about a product, about a market, about a plan, about
it's tough.
Getting to clarity, at the end of the day, a friend of mine's got a sweatshirt, and on the sweatshirt it says 10 hours worth of coding could have been fixed by 30 minutes of planning. So when you don't have clarity and you run through an exercise and then you look back and you see how expensive that exercise was.
Yeah, and there's a giant cluster too at the same time. You look at it like, can I even use this?
Yeah, no question about it. But I got ripped the other day because we haven't built ActiveWords for the Mac community.
Yeah.
And I have these stats that I look at all the time, that there 7.1% of computers that ship run the Mac operating system.
They're a very vocal bunch, though.
Very vocal bunch, but that also means there's something like 1.4, 1.6 billion people using Windows every day.
Yeah.
And as an entrepreneur, you have to look at the addressable market.
Yep.
The other thing I've been thinking a lot about as an entrepreneur, I am an aging baby boomer, as you can see, and as you've heard. And I don't want to bore you with when I was born. I don't have to take my shoes off at the airport anymore, which is, a little indicator, which is nice.
And privileges with age.
Yeah, privileges with age. But,
he can't be a terrorist.
I have these two statistics bouncing around in my head. Number one statistic is that 73% of the wealth in America is controlled by aging baby boomers. Not wages, but wealth. And when I meet young startups and entrepreneurs and things like that, I say, what are you building? What are you thinking about for the people with the money? And they look at me like this must be some trick question that I have to go through. Or this guy's got some agenda item. And I explain to them. And, people will talk about the fact that as you get older, your tastes are locked in. That is common. Older people with discretionary spending and have interest in tastes and ideas, I'd love to see how many Pelotons, for example, were purchased by people who are baby boomers.
We've been talking about, your background. We've been talking about ActiveWords. So where can people find ActiveWords? And what's the gist behind that? I mean, it's amazing. It's not expensive, and it does everything under the sun pretty much. I mean, it's incredible.
So we're at www.activewords.com. And unfortunately, and I keep thinking about our website doing a better job of conveying the power of the idea. But we let you name computing events, and you can type it, you can ink it, and you could one day say it, a letter, a word, or an acronym, and it will do text expansion, launch apps, navigate to websites, open docs, open files, folders, and drives, launch Windows Store apps, and we even have a scripting language, which is low-code, no-code way of creating a macro.
It's pretty slick. And Buzz, where can people find you to connect?
At BuzzMoto on Twitter, Buzz Bruggeman on LinkedIn, and don't be shy. Reach out to me, and I routinely walk customers through ActiveWords.
This has been great, Buzz. This has been awesome. Yeah, I know you have to run. You got more meetings and more people to spread the word. So, all right, Buzz. Thanks for being on. I appreciate it.
See you, man.
That was a great show. Hey, if you're enjoying Entrepreneurs Enigma, please give us a review on the podcast directory of your choice. We're on all of them. And these reviews really help others find the show. Also, if you're getting value from the show and want to buy me a coffee, go to the show notes and click on the link to help me stay awake while I bring you more great episodes to your ears. That's in the show notes, and I look forward to the next episode. Take care, guys. Goldstein Media hopes you have enjoyed this episode. This podcast is one of the many great shows on the MPN Marketing Podcast Network.
This podcast is coming to you on MPN, the Marketing Podcast Network. There's another show on MPN you might enjoy as well. I'm Jamie Lieberman, host of the Unbusiness Podcast. In each episode, we talk about the issues that face every entrepreneur where business and legal strategy intersect. Subscribe to the Unbusiness Podcast today. It'll make your business that much smarter. Just visit #legal.com or search for the Unbusiness Podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.